Right, ladies, gentlemen, everybody ready? Hello? Are we ready? And can you see the
Yes,
screen?
yes,
Right. Okay, so we've done this on unaccompanied minors. Okay. The unaccompanied minor form, you see these kids are wearing these little envelopes around their neck. Can you see
yes,
that? Yeah.
yeah,
Right. This is what you, as the travel agent, get the parents or the guardian to fill in. It's going to tell the airline who's bringing them to the airport, who's collecting them from the airport. Do they have any allergies? Do they have, all the information about that child? And it's around the child's neck from the minute they check in until the minute they get to the other end. So if they get lost at an airport terminal or something, somebody just looks at the front cover of this, they can find them. They know who they are, what they're doing. Okay? Right, expectant mothers. That's another group that you should know about. Now, generally, it's advisable for any expectant mother to just check with her doctor that she's okay to fly. Okay? Most women easily up to the sixth month are okay to fly. From the sixth month onward, a little bit more caution has to be taken. But any airline, if they have an expectant mother, even in the first couple of months, the airline could still ask for a doctor's letter saying, is this person, fit enough to travel? So one, make sure the expectant mother sees her doctor just to be on the safe side. Two, you may have to have a medical letter from the doctor to the airline. Okay? The early stages of a normal pregnancy is usually acceptable, but every carrier can have different rules and regulations. You need to check. Okay, if you have an expectant mother, there is no code for expectant mother. So this is where another place where you'd use the others to say, Mrs. So-and-so is expecting, and it's a very good idea is not just put she's expecting, but when she flies, at what stage of the pregnancy is she? Okay. Easiest one is to put in how many months. You could put in trimesters if you're medically inclined. Okay. So a baby, okay, is somebody under that 2. Okay. Once they reach their second birthday, they're a child. Now, this does cause some issues on return flights. In other words, they fly out and they're under 2. But when they fly back, they've had their birthday somewhere. And when they come back, they're 2, i.e., a child. Many countries' international regulations say anyone 2 and above must have a seat. Now, that's going to affect the fare. Normally, usually, children under 2 pay 10% of the adult fare. Children 2 and above normally pay 75% of the adult fare. So if a child changes from an infant to a child during the flight, you may find they have to pay the child fare for the whole journey, because coming back, they must have a seat because of international safety rules. Doesn't apply to every country or every carrier. Some carriers, they say whatever is the date or the age of the person when they start to fly, that's their age for the whole thing. And this country doesn't enforce over 2 with a seat, so we'll let them have it at 10%. Again, you have to check. Once you've checked, you don't have to keep checking every single time. You just update yourself every 6 months or something. All right. Babies don't always get a seat. If they pay 10%, they don't get a seat. Okay? And infants, there's no such thing as an unaccompanied infant, because no airline is going to take the responsibility of transporting a baby under 2. Yeah, the responsibility is too much for them. Some people say, look, I know they don't have to pay the child fare, but it's a long flight. Yeah. If they don't have a seat, they have to sit on my lap. I don't want them sitting on my lap for a 12-hour flight. So I will pay the child fare for them. And then that infant gets a seat. If you want to get the 10% discount, the rule is 1 adult, 1 infant gets the 10%. So if you've got 1 adult and they have twin boys, both of them 10 months, both of them don't get 10% fares. Yeah, they don't get 90% discounts. One will, and the other one has to pay the child fare. If there's 2 adults traveling, yes, then you can have 2 children at 10%. Okay, so that's that bit there. Baby bassinets. Number 1, request as far in advance as possible. Number 2, make sure you put the age in, because some carriers will only let you use the Sky Cot up to 1 year. Some it's up to 18 months. Yeah. There are some that will let you go up to the full 2 years, but not many carriers do that. And of course, you can have a baby meal, yeah, where they get all the food ready. Here's an example of a Sky Cot. Okay, there's a Sky Cot. It fixes to the bulkhead here, the bulkhead, hooks on here, and the baby can sleep. Okay, and if the baby sleeps, that means the parents sleep. Infants also have special life jackets. Now, for most people, adults and children, your life jacket either is overhead or under your seat. This is why you have to listen carefully to in-flight announcements. Because, if maybe you've flown before and the life vest was in the seat under you. On this aircraft, it might be under a seat, but the one in front of you or overhead. So you should really listen to in-flight safety announcements. Life vests, some you wear like a jacket. You put them on this way and you tie them in the front. Some go over your head. Yeah. Some tie at the side, some at the front. If there's an emergency, it's too late to check. The plane's going to do an emergency landing in the water. Everybody else on the flight is going, ah! And you say to the stewardess, excuse me, how do I put my life vest on? It's too late. That's why you should always listen to in-flight announcements for safety and read the card. It used to be, I don't know if it is now, but when I started flying, you could always tell people who flew a lot because they were the ones who paid attention to the safety announcement. The people who only traveled once or twice a year They thought, oh no, I don't need to listen to this, which is really strange. The
I
more
think
you
it's the
fly,
opposite.
yeah, it's the opposite of what you'd expect. But, you know, I always listen to the safety announcements. What if, you know, I mean, they tell you where are the emergency exits. Yeah. You got one here, one here. But don't just find your nearest emergency exit. Find the second one, because if that one's blocked, where do you go next? Once you're in an emergency situation, you don't have time to work things out. You just have to do it. So when I sit down, I find my nearest emergency exit. So they might be in front. Then I look around and say, if I can't get out there, where's the next ones? Because I want to be one of the 51% of people who survive, you know, an emergency landing. Another reason you have to tell carriers about babies is there are special life vests for babies, but they only carry like 1 or 2 per flight. What happens if you got 6 infants? That means 4 of them don't have a life vest. But if the carrier knows, or the airline knows, we got 6 kids, infants on this flight, they'll put extra life jackets on. Everything for safety. Right. Medical conditions. Yeah. Lots of people have medical conditions, some serious. And even then, airlines will do their best to transport that passenger. The code here is MEDA, medical. And then you specify what's wrong. So say, for instance, someone has been on a skiing holiday and they broke their leg. MEDA, right leg broken in plaster cast. That means if your right leg is broken, don't put that person by a window seat on the right. Put them on an aisle seat where they're on the left, you know, where they can put their leg out. Okay. They still have to make sure that they don't obstruct the gangway in case of emergencies. Did you know that airlines, if people have breathing illnesses like emphysema, they will supply oxygen, not the emergency oxygen, but a real tank of oxygen with the mask and everything. They'll do that. Probably you have to pay because it's an extra expense, but it can be done. So here's the oxygen on board. There is a standard 4-letter code for this, OXYG, oxygen, and stretchers, STCR. Now, you might be saying to yourself, hang on, why do I have to learn all these codes? Well, tell me, does everybody in the world speak English?
No.
No. So in the early days of flying, they had to find a way of sending information simply, which everyone could understand. So even if you don't use the Western alphabet, you have to learn maybe 50 of these codes. OXYG means oxygen. Yeah. Maybe you remember it in your own language, but you know what it means. You don't have to learn the English for oxygen. Stretcher passenger, STRETCHER space, PASS. It's STCR space PAX, stretcher passenger. Much easier to understand. So it stops confusion at destinations or countries where English may not be so common. Baggage, okay? 2 types of baggage, unchecked and checked. Unchecked baggage is the one you take onto the aircraft with you. Checked baggage is the one that gets weighed and goes in the aircraft storage area called the hold, HOLD, okay? Both of them will have some limitations. Normally, if you're taking a bag onto a flight, there is a weight restriction of between 5 and 7 kg, depending on the route and the carrier. If you're flying in business class or first, sometimes they let you go up to 10 kg. But the reason they don't want it too heavy is sometimes there's turbulence on a flight, and some landings can be a bit bumpy. Do you really want something weighing 7 kg falling out the locker and banging you on the head? I think the answer to that is no. So that's why they limit it. 7 kg is bad enough. Imagine if it was 14 kg. So for unchecked baggage, the stuff you're allowed to take on a plane, in many airports, they have these little boxes or something. You know, it could be a wire cage or something. And they will check, does your bag fit into that space? Because that space is the same space, the same square area as the overhead locker or the seat underneath in front of you. They want to make sure it can fit in the overhead locker or under the seat in front of you. They do not want bags in the aisle in case of emergencies. In addition, there may be size restrictions. Now, I do suggest you don't memorize this. Like I said, when you get your books, we're going to spend a little bit of time indexing some important pages. This is one of the ones to index because it varies. It's a lot to remember, all for one point. No, this one you look up. Generally, they're moving down the cabin baggage or unchecked baggage to 5 kg. Some are still using the old 7 kg, but they're moving towards 5 because it's safer. I mean, have any of you been in a flight with bad turbulence? You know, where the overhead lockers open and things fall down. Anyone ever been on a flight like that? No?
No,
No?
just normal ones.
Yeah. Well, once I was flying with Singapore Airlines, and over India during the monsoon season, you can get some bumpy rides, and this was a bumpy ride. With the air turbulence, we hit an air pocket and we just dropped. Everything and everybody who was not strapped down ended up on the ceiling. And then when we hit the bottom, everything came down. Everybody was covered with food and it was a mess. Fortunately, the baggage lockers didn't spring open, so we didn't have big heavy bags flying everywhere. The only people who were injured were the ones who ignored the safety announcements. Because you're told when you're sat down, have the seatbelt loosely fastened. Yeah, and I had it loosely fastened. I went a little bit up in the air, but the belt held me down, so I didn't end up on the ceiling. There were 2 or 3 passengers who literally ended up on the ceiling because they didn't listen. Yeah, there's no cure for stupid. Right, baggage restrictions in business class could go up to a generous 10 kg. Okay, but if it's a carrier you're not familiar with, check their allowances. For you, obviously, check with carriers that actually fly in and out of Bahrain. Do British Airways fly in and out of Bahrain? No? Yes? Actually, they do. They have a direct flight to London every day. That's an airline you should check what's their baggage allowance. Do Cathay Pacific from Hong Kong, do they fly in and out of Bahrain?
They used to, but they closed last month.
That's right. They don't anymore. So that's not a priority. If they fly in and out of Bahrain, that's the priority. Others you can pick up as you go along, but you should know the ones that your passengers are most likely to be on. Right. We've all heard about the restrictions on what you can take on board an aircraft. And remember, it's all about safety and comfort. So, national civil aviation authorities, the Bahrain Civil Aviation Authority, in common with all the other civil aviation authorities around the world, have agreed on some certain restrictions, what you can and cannot take into an aircraft. Yeah. In the hold is different from in the aircraft. For instance, for unchecked baggage, the cabin baggage, you cannot take in a pair of scissors, but you can put scissors in your checked luggage because that goes in the hold. If you've got scissors in the cabin, you could do damage to somebody. Liquids, yeah. Normally it's 100 milliliters, okay? But even that, you have to declare, show them what it is, they have to check it. If it's over 100 milliliters, at most airports, they just pick it up and throw it in the bin. They don't give you a chance to do anything with it, especially in Europe, because everybody knows the maximum is 100. So if you've bought some Chanel number 5 and it's 200 milliliters, just say bye-bye. You're not going to get it back. Other things, yeah? What can you take on and cannot take off? Now, you can take some of these liquids, but they have to go in a transparent, resealable bag. And you show that bag at security and they check it and make sure it meets, you know, the requirements of the Civil Aviation Authority. Right, unchecked baggage remains with the passenger and is stored in the aircraft, you know, in the actual seating part of the aircraft, either under the seat in front of you or in the overhead locker. Okay, there will be weight and size restrictions. Okay, usual is about 5 kg. Roughly, what is it for business and first?
10 to 4.
Sorry?
10 kg.
10 kg. Okay. Liquids, aerosols, gels, yeah. You can have them in your checked luggage, the stuff that goes in the aircraft hold, but not on board the flight. When in doubt, check with the airline, check with the airport. Right, now checked baggage is the baggage that goes into the aircraft hold here, okay? So you have no access to it during the flight. You can't get hold of your bags during the flight. That's why they don't mind you having scissors in there, because you can't get hold of them until you get to the other end. Every airline sets the maximum number of weight, the size. Can you take one piece? Can you take 2 pieces? It varies carrier by carrier. It's something you have to learn over the years. You don't learn everything all at once. You pick things up as you go along. But when in doubt, check it out. If you have above your allowance, yeah, an airline can refuse to take the bag. They might say, no, 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 you can't pay for it. We're already overloaded. Yeah. Because there's so much space in the aircraft hold. And it's not just used for baggage, it's used for transporting post. It's used by courier companies. Food is imported in these things. I mean, they're used. So if you don't arrange these things in advance, you may be at an airport in a foreign country with a bag, and they say, no, sorry, you can't take it on. There are other ways you can do it. You can send it by cargo, but it arrives a week later, and it's possible to deal with it, but it's very inconvenient. So they set extra fees for extra bags, extra weight. That's all here. Here is an example of what you're allowed to take between Europe and the United States or Canada. Okay. Right, you can transport one bag weighing up to 23 kg, no charge. Okay. What if you want to take something that weighs more? Well, you have to pay more. Or if you want to take two bags, you have to pay. Okay. But it depends also on your class. If you look here, if you're flying blue, silver, or gold, platinum, sky teams, you can transport one additional bag weighing up to 23 kilos. So if you're a member of this flying frequent flyer program, yes, you can have an extra bag, but the average person, no. If you exceed your baggage allowance, okay, it's 75 USD on flights departing from the United States. So for each extra bag, you have to pay 75. If it's from Canada, it's still 75, but Canadian dollars. If it's departing Europe to America, then it's charged in euros. Okay. So all of this is from a website, an airline website. So it is there. You have to search. This is British Airways, I think. Yes, world class, it's British Airways. So the maximum you're allowed to take in first class is 40 kg, 88 lb. What does lb stand for?
Pounds.
Pounds, yes. Remember, almost everybody in the world uses kilos, except the USA and I think Fiji or some island country somewhere. So your job is to give the information to the passenger, let them decide what they like. So you don't say, oh, you can take 40 kg. Yeah. If they're Bahrainis, yes, you can say that. If it's anybody else, say you can take 40 kilograms, that's 88 pounds. They will listen and hear the one they like. Okay. Okay, key learning point. Checked baggage is baggage that accompanies an airline passenger but cannot be stored in the aircraft cabin. So your checked baggage and your unchecked baggage travels on the same flight as you. Unchecked baggage comes into the cabin with you. Checked baggage, that goes into the aircraft hold. Okay? And in a funny color, there is no standard rule for transporting baggage. It varies airline by airline. Airlines will charge whatever whatever the market segment can bear, the airlines will charge that for excess baggage. It might be cheaper to take excess baggage from Europe to Canada than it is from Canada to Europe, depends on the market segment. Do you remember we talked about that?
Yes.
Or is it all forgotten?
No, I remember.
Okay. Right. Generally speaking, for competitive reasons, airlines flying the same route usually charge more or less the same excess baggage charges. Because if you're flying, say, Bahrain to Dubai, and you've got an extra bag, Emirates charge you 50 BD, Gulf Air charge you 10, you're going to fly with Gulf Air. But if Emirates charge 50 and Gulf Air charge 48, then it's not so clear. You'll go by other preferences as well. Children get exactly the same allowance as adults. If they pay 75% of the fare, the child fare, they get the same luggage allowance. But infants, it's different. They can have one piece, and there is a 10 kilo limitation. This is the bag that you put their nappies and their bottles and bits and pieces in. In addition to that, they can have one pushchair, stroller, whatever you want to call it, okay? But it must be collapsible. It's got to be able to collapse. And the carrier has to have the storage space. So again, you better tell them in advance, this passenger is going to be bringing a stroller, it's this size, it's collapsible, they're ready for it. Consult the airline website to double check. Okay. Now, I don't think we're going to have a chance to do most significant carrier today because that's a little bit tricky. And I think your brains are already ready to explode. So let me get rid of this. Right. For a couple of minutes, we're going to talk about some of the previous things we've done, which are going to come up in your online. I don't like to call them tests because it's not a test as in, you know, marks are recorded and stuff. Let's call them reviews, where you review things, okay? You are definitely going to have time calculation. So let me ask you some basics on time calculation. In the world, in the Pacific Ocean, there is an imaginary zigzag line, and it separates two different dates. What do we call that imaginary line?
International date.
Sorry?
International date line.
International date line. Now, there's another imaginary line, but this one starts in the north, yeah, and it runs more or less by the Atlantic Ocean, through the UK, bits of Africa. What's that one called?
Greenwich Mean Time.
Sorry?
GMT.
GMT line, or Prime Meridian line, or UTC line. What does UTC stand for? Have I got you? Universal
Time calculation.
Okay, that one is definitely going to be in your review paper, okay? If I find something you don't know, you can be sure that one's going to turn up in your exam paper. Or maybe I'm lying and it won't be there, but you'll still look it up anyway. I did warn you in lesson 1, don't trust me, okay? Might be there, might not. So now you're all thinking, it won't be there, and it will be. Or it might not be. Okay. To the west of the GMT line, this is the hemisphere. So to the left of the GMT line, it's the what hemisphere?
Western.
Sorry?
Western hemisphere.
Western hemisphere. So to the right must be the Eastern.
hemisphere.
If I want to check the time difference between two cities or two countries, one of them is plus something and the other one is minus something, how do I work out the difference?
I've lost them together.
You add them together, exactly. Add them together, you'll get the time difference. Okay? What does DST stand for? Delta Sierra Tango, DST.
Daylight saving time.
Daylight saving time. True or false? Every country uses daylight saving time.
False.
No.
False, absolutely false. Yeah. In fact, you can have one country where parts of the country use it and other parts don't. I've got two countries. One stretches north to south, and one stretches east to west. Which is most likely to have different time zones? The one stretching north to south or the one east to west?
East to west.
East to west, yes. You stretch across the world like Russia, Canada, USA, you're likely to have more than one time zone. If you have a country like Chile, very long, but it goes north to south, they only have one time zone. So you will get some time calculations. You will definitely get some global indicators and sub areas like SASC. Yeah. Which countries are in SASC?
India and the
South
surrounding
Asian
neighboring countries of India.
Okay, what does SASC stand for, first of all?
South Asian
subcontinent.
Thank you, South Asian subcontinent. Right, in the South Asian subcontinent, there are two countries starting with the letter B, B for Bahrain, B for Bravo. What are the two countries starting with the letter B?
One is Bhutan
Sorry?
and Brunei.
No, SASC. One is Bangladesh. What's the other one? Remember, sorry?
No, Pakistan.
No, B. B for Bahrain. Okay. South Asian subcontinent means the countries around India, basically.
Yeah.
So one with B.
Bhutan.
Bhutan. Yes, well done. That was the one I thought you wouldn't know. If I said Pakistan, too easy. Sri Lanka, too easy. Nepal, iffy. What's the capital of Nepal?
Kathmandu.
Sorry?
Kathmandu.
Kathmandu.
Kathmandu. Okay, ladies